You are watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, 12:30 a.m., which makes it Wednesday, March 30th, Wednesday night, March 30th, or Thursday morning. We are continuing our playthrough of Mortem L.A. Lights, Camera, Murder. This is session 2. This will be our last session. We'll finish up the game tonight, and then after we read the solution, we'll spend a good deal of time talking about our experience playing the game. I see that Jonathan and Duke of Zill are in the chat. Let me know if you can hear the audio okay and see okay. Let's go through our cameras. We've got our top down, our close-up top down, our tablet view if we need to go digital, and our chat. So I think we're all set to go. We're starting an hour and a half late tonight so that we can accommodate some of our participants in the chat. And needless to say, this will be full of spoilers. You shouldn't watch this if you plan to play this game. And it's been a pretty good game so far, so if you like this genre, it might very well behoove you to wait and play the game. But also, this is session 2. You should start with session 1 if you are interested in watching the playthrough. And at the beginning of session 1, I spent some time talking about the history of this game and where it fits into the context of these kinds of games, so we won't do that again tonight. We'll just jump right in. I did want to say a couple of preliminaries first, though. The first one is that if you do think you might enjoy playing these games with us or watching these videos, there is a Board Game Geek Guild for Co-op for Two for this YouTube channel, where we plan what games to play next. And so in addition to subscribing to the channel, if you like this content, you could click on the community tab in YouTube and get the link to it. Or I think in the YouTube videos on the lower right, there are links to the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel. And it's just a little forum section devoted to the channel. And there's a thread in there where we're discussing what games to play next. And you can vote and let us know what games you'd like us to play. Okay, that's the first preliminary. The second one is, I thought we should spend some time recapping what's going on in this case and our theories. When we ended the stream last night at 6 a.m. or so, I was feeling like I'm loving the game, but the actual murder seems straightforward. The case seems straightforward, but I started to have second thoughts about that, some doubts about how straightforward the case is based on some unresolved issues. I went through, I reread all of the paragraphs, all of the sections we've read, and I wrote up some notes and some unresolved things, and so maybe we'll go over that. But let's start recapping what we know so far, the basics, and the chat can jump in and tell me if I've missed anything. So we started out, interestingly enough, with a case we're brought on. We're brought on because the LAPD has got a scandal recently, so they've hired PI, that's us, our organization, to sort of double check to make sure everything's done right. We're brought onto a movie lot, the Orpheum movie lot, where we've got 2 dead bodies. Here's a photograph of the crime scene. 2 dead bodies in what looks like a fairly by-the-book murder-suicide. Clara Rose, promising movie actress, actually maybe past her prime movie actress, shot in the heart. At distance, no stippling on her body. And then several feet away, her ex-husband, a known to be sort of scumbag, shot in the mouth with stippling and powder burns. Looks like a traditional murder-suicide. Nothing really suggesting that that's not what the case is. There's a tiny bit, there's a third set of footprints, but that could be someone who discovered the body, etc. And we've got the autopsy reports. Everything seems fairly straightforward, murder-suicide. And that, in fact, may be what we're dealing with. We may, in fact, be dealing with a murder-suicide. We run into a couple people early on who are like, yeah, it's a murder-suicide, but the whole town is what drove it to happen. So maybe that's the proximal cause is murder-suicide, but there are other people who drove them to it. We don't know. We have had some contradictory opinions from people who are in a position to know. Clara's mother tells us that, yeah, she completely believes that the man, Joe Fletcher, the ex-husband, would have killed her. She buys that, but he never would have killed himself. He's too selfish a person. We have uncovered what looks like a bit of a plot to blackmail her. We found, in the course of our investigations, 2 blackmail notes of sorts that look like they are written in the same handwriting, although that's not clear, actually. The exclamation points look similar, but we're going to have to study this a little more closely. We've got 3 samples of handwriting, actually, that these may all be from the same person, but we have to take another look at that. But there are other things confusing about these blackmail notes. As we understand it, the first note was found in her house during a burglary in February. So our murder takes place on April 3rd. One of the odd things about the murder, actually, is that in her hand, in her right hand, is a locket. Grasped in her right hand is a locket. The locket has a photo of her and an inscription that says something like, April 3rd, I'll never forget. Something like that. Not around her neck, but in her hand. Okay, so then this murder happens on April 3rd. She's got a locket that says April 3rd, never forget. In February, she was robbed by a kid who was a fan. One of the things he took was this note. This note says, I'm begging you for your own sake, you must stop. You know you have nothing without me. No career, no cafe, no nothing. You are mine and I am yours. We made this bed. We all made this bed and we have to sleep in it. So come back to bed, Clara, before it's too late. She denied this was hers, but we feel fairly confident that this kid, 17-year-old kid, took it from her bedroom drawer. Later on, at Joe Fletcher's hotel room, we find this note, which seems to be the same handwriting. It seems to be the same idea. It says, you are forcing us to do this, Clara. Make it easy and we will go easy on you. Continue to make it difficult, we will go public. You can't run away from your past, Clara, or from us. I believe I'm getting correct which note was found in her house and which note was found in her ex-husband's hotel room. We think she was being blackmailed about an illegitimate child she had 18 years ago. We found this, and I'll remind us because I think there was some confusion at the time. We found this birth record in her P.O. box, I believe, which means it would have been delivered very recently, if that's correct, which is a little confusing. But it seems to suggest a child, Andrew Eli Pent, born on April 3rd, 1930. So perhaps, or likely, this is the April 3rd that she'll never forget, this illegitimate child that we believe she may have given up for adoption or put in an orphanage. The last name Pent, we believe, comes from one of her first, actually her first film. Her first? Yeah, her first film where she played Miss Dakota Pent. So we believe she used that as the name of the child, and we found evidence that she's giving donations to an orphanage, so perhaps that's why. I don't know why this is just coming to her, and we originally thought that this was blackmail in the possession of the... Now I'm not... You know what? I'm not sure now. Can the audience remind me, the chat, is this what we found in the hotel room? And this was in her mailbox? Or was it vice versa? because I was starting to think this was in her P.O. box, but maybe I'm getting that wrong. I think I might be getting that wrong. I think this might be what we found in the husband's hotel room. And this was in her mailbox. But can someone remind me about that? We need to know that. That's actually fairly certain. Because we did think we got the birth certificate from the hotel room. But I need to know which one it is. And in fact, they came in evidence bags, but I don't know how to trace it back. And we kind of need to know that. So maybe on a break, we'll try to figure that out. But that could be a huge issue for us. We should have kept track of what evidence we got from what evidence bag. So I think I'm probably wrong. I think we found this in the hotel room, the birth certificate belonging to the husband, and that's why we thought he was blackmailing her with it. And this must have been in her recent P.O. box. Okay, so that's sort of important. We'll come back to that. We have the video, so we can watch the video. Maybe on a break, we'll try to find that video where we discovered that. And then we can clarify for sure which of these notes we found in the mailbox. But now I'm fairly certain, in fact, that this is the note we found in the hotel room. It was described to us as a yellowed piece of paper. So that makes sense that this birth certificate is old and is the yellowed piece of paper. So now I'm fairly certain that we were right. Originally, we found this in the hotel room, the birth certificate, and in the hotel room of the husband, and maybe that's how he was using it to blackmail her. Okay, good. I'm glad we got that resolved. Here is the hotel room key that we found in Joe Fletcher, the murdered man's, the ex-husband's car that led us to the room. In the Joe Fletcher's original apartment that he got kicked out of, we found this letter, crumpled up with coffee stains, from Clara Rose's lawyer, telling Fletcher that she's going to stop paying the marriage separation payments of $150 a month. And he's written on the back to the lawyer. It looks like, we know he was a drunk. It looks like he was drunk and then faded off as he was writing it. But he's basically saying, there's no way in hell I'm done with this. Then he says, my lawyers will something. It almost sounds like he's got lawyers and he's trying to sue. I wonder, it just occurred to me, if he says my lawyers, I wonder if we should be checking the other law firms to see if he's hired lawyers. I'm going to put that in my notes here. If he really does have lawyers, then it seems to me we should see if Fletcher has lawyers. I'm going to put it up here. This is one of the reasons why we broke at the end of last night. You get in the middle of these things, and you're on a roll. Things don't occur to you till you take a break. So a bunch of things have occurred to me in the interim, and I'll see if you guys have as well. All right, it looks like everyone's agreeing in the chat that the birth certificate was found in the hotel room. So let me clarify that. I apologize for the mistake. It's a good lesson for us about note-taking. You take evidence out from a bag, it's not labeled. You should be labeling that where you found it. So in fact, let's be smart. Let's do that right now. Let's put a little note on this that says we found in Fletcher hotel room. Can you guys, while you're checking notes, and Duke of Zill says it's confirmed, Crew 912. Okay, can you confirm which of these notes. One was found in her P.O. box, and one was found stolen by the kid in February. So one was found today, like April 4th, in her P.O. box. One was found by the kid in February. We need to know which is which. So if someone can find that, either in yesterday's video or in your notes, and then we'll write that down. While we are processing that, let's continue summing up our case. So we've got an indication that she wanted to divorce her husband, but he was blackmailing her, so they never officially got divorced. So there's that. We know she's having an affair with another actor on the set, William Hale, but he seems completely open to the fact that they were having an affair. He's not too shy about it. We know that Our Lady Clara Rose had a run-in with the wife of William Hale at a club, the Trocadero, where they had a fight. And then we know there was another incident at the Trocadero where she confronted Howard Hughes and Otto Friedrich, who owns the Orpheum Theater, the Orpheum Movie Production Company. And there are rumors that she had some thing with him in the past. And I don't think we followed that up as much as we needed to. Okay, Duke of Zil says, the yellowish one is 655. So Duke of Zil, correct me, you're saying the yellowish one is 655, clue 655. And this is the one in the P.O. box. 655 is the P.O. box, okay. So this is the one from basically April 3rd that was just in her P.O. box. She hadn't picked it up yet, or on or about April 3rd. And then this one would be stolen from her bedroom in February. Okay, that's great. Super important. This one came first, then came this one, which presumably she never picked up. Okay, excellent. Excellent. All right, so at the Trocadero bar, she has a fight with the wife first. She's in a bad mood. Then she makes a call to the Sidewalk Cafe that she co-owns with a silent partner named Eddie Kellogg. And then she's kind of drunk and she gets into a fight with Otto Friedrich and Howard Hughes. We know a little bit about the call because one person overheard it at the bar and he mentioned some stuff that he kind of remembers, and we might want to look at that later. Then when we get to the Sidewalk Cafe, we find they're running an illegal gambling joint upstairs. And the manager woman confirms that she overheard the call also, and that the call was to Thomas Deasy, who plays a big role in this case. Thomas Deasy has been best friends with her ex-husband, Joe Fletcher, for as long as they've known each other, like 30 years. He was her manager in the early days. He's now working as a bartender in the club. The silent partner tells us at some point that he actually has some ownership of the Sidewalk Cafe as well. And he's got some relationship. He's under the thumb of this bigger mobster, Chaz, who we track down eventually, who he owes money to. So it's a complicated web here. Her ex-husband's best friend, DZ, works in the Sidewalk Cafe, has some ownership, is running illegal gambling with mobsters, owes some money to mobster, may own part of the Sidewalk Cafe, and was her previous manager. And then there's some comments in the chat I'm going to get back to in a second. When we track down Chaz, this big mobster, he turns out to be a boxer. He sort of plays dumb, but he tells us who these two big redhead brutes are that beat us up at the hotel. He tells us they're the Webbers. We haven't tracked them down yet. And he gives us the secret phrase so that we can meet up with DZ at a hotel, which we eventually do. When we meet up with DZ, he tells us that he didn't kill her. And in fact, he knows her secret from April 3rd, or it doesn't say April 3rd, from her past, but he's never revealed it. And he basically tells us this interesting story about how Clara sort of was a glutton for punishment. She let people use her ever since this day in her past, which maybe we think is this day when she had this illegitimate kid. But he says, yes, I was embezzling money from the cafe, but it was her husband that's been blackmailing her, and I would never use that information against her. And we know, we're told that he's been on edge recently, but we think maybe it's because he's been having his fare. He just got kicked out by his wife. What am I forgetting that is part of this story? I think those are the basics. Those are the basics of our case. In the chat, Jonathan says, there are a couple of things about Hale that I want to come back to, but it's a bit of stretch, so I think finish summary first. Duke of Zil says, I can't remember why she had the fight with Otto. He owns the Red Thugs. Yes, okay, so this was a very important point. Otto Friedrich, who I am starting to suspect is deeper involved in this. Otto Friedrich is one of the people that run this town, along with Howard Hughes. There is an insinuation that he and Clara Rose had some connection in the past, and that he's sleazy. I think he may be the father of Clara's illegitimate child. And that may be what she was yelling at him about. We have to run that down. When we do visit Otto Friedrich's office, they don't want to let us in to see him, and we eventually see him with the two red-headed guys who beat us up at the hotel. So this again connects us to Otto Friedrich, which we need to study more. But I want to say something else that we might have overlooked. When we visit Chaz, the mobster, we ask him who he thinks killed Clara. And he says that he's heard a rumor that these two redheads were hired to do it. So there's that. Jonathan Warner reminds us the books were being cooked at the Sidewalk Cafe. Yes, that's where Thomas DZ was embezzling and cooking the books from the Sidewalk Cafe, funneling off money and stealing it, which he admits to. Duke Uzo reminds us that Otto and the two redheads got into a specific car. Could be relevant. Yes, we're told what car it is. I think it was a Chrysler convertible. Let's get back to Jonathan's point about William Hale. There is a little bit of a contradiction. When we talk to witnesses who heard the shots, they all are consistent about hearing two shots. They're all mostly consistent about how the bodies were found, except that Alice Doone, who's one of the witnesses, she says that when she went running for the bodies, she saw William Hale, and he just left didn't want to come with her to see the bodies. When we talk to William Hale, he's quite calm, but he describes, it's a little ambiguous, but it sounds like he's saying he was in his trailer and doesn't admit to running into Alice Doone on the lot near the bodies. So it's a little weird why he's not admitting to being on this near the scene, especially since he seems completely open that he was having an affair with Clara. All right, what else am I missing? Jonathan was saying also that William Hale was saying something about practicing an accent. I'm not sure how that's relevant or one of the odd things about the murder was that it happened on the Civil War lot, which is completely across the movie lot from where Clara was working on her movie, and she's dressed up in her movie get up. She was doing reshoots for her movie. So one question is why was she meeting over on the other side of the lot? Jonathan Warner says, I think Hale claimed he was practicing his accent, which might mean he was involved in the Civil War movie where the murder occurred. So maybe she was meeting with him. Although we're told from her phone call, it sounds like she set up today's meeting during that phone call, I believe. Like if you look at we can reread some of these. He says when he's the guy who's overheard her at the club making the phone call, she says, you might have overheard something. And he says, I might have. Something perhaps about plans to meet alone, though not wanting to do it, needing to keep it on the down low, sly, the QT, the hush hush, something like that. So it seems to me that she arranged this meeting with whoever, with her husband, or Tom. Don't forget, it's Thomas Deasy that she's talking on the phone call with. So it sounds like she arranged to meet with Thomas Deasy. How she ends up with her husband on that lot is a different issue. I will point out another little thing. There's an interesting thing about the hat at the scene of the crime. When we finally meet up with Deasy, it's emphasized he's wearing some ill-fitting hat. Let's just read that a little bit. Thomas Deasy is even less impressive than you've come to imagine. Average height, average looks, not groomed enough to suggest any style. The only point of note at all, apart from the dame hiding behind him, is the brand new ill-fitting trilby hat sitting atop his head. Then he looks at our hat when we put it on the couch, and we note again he's got this ill-fitting hat. And I noted at the scene of the crime, I don't know where it was described. Let's see. At the scene of the crime, when we get out there, let's see. He's basically got, he's got black shoes, black shirt, gray overcoat, and his hat is brown. It's a brown fedora that's on the ground next to him. And so with a stripe. And so I wonder, do you wear a brown hat with black clothes? Like there's something suggesting to me that maybe Deasy was on the scene and it's his hat. Just an idea. Just an idea. Let's see in the chat. Jonathan says, stretch theory, could Hale be the father of the child and they are really meeting to discuss the child, but people think they're having an affair? I don't buy it. I mean, this child is 18 years old, so it's an 18-year-old thing. So unless there's no sign that William Hale met up with Clara 18 years ago, I don't think. Duke of Zil says, didn't Clara tell her fellow actress why she went off the lot? I don't remember that. if you remember where we heard that, are you talking about Alice Dune being the one that's somewhere in the lot? 789. Oh, that's William Hale. Just to get one of Jonathan's points, when we meet William Hale, he says, he's telling us what happened. I'm here in the trailer doing my vocal warm-up. So not practicing an accent, just doing his vocal warm-ups. And the next thing I know, Clara is gone. It baffles the mind how quickly a light is snuffed out. It's not clear to me whether, like, was she meeting with him and then she left to meet up, or is he saying Clara is gone metaphorically, like one minute she's alive, 1 minute she's gone? I was trying to find where Duke of Zill was saying that she told someone. It would have been one of these places here. Let's see what 222 is. We have our notes. That's the... Let's find the original people she talked to. It would be nice if she said, I mean, I think she's going to a meeting that she prepared. 888 is Alice Dune. Alice Dune we recognize from the movie. She's in her trailer. She's pretty broken up. You saw her just before it happened. Dune nods and now she looks up. I wanted to talk to her, see how she was doing after last night, but she acted like she didn't have time. The director was looking for her. I told him which way she went. So I think this is just confirming, okay, but you were right. She did tell someone. She had a meeting. She had arranged a meeting last night on that phone call on the lot. Like, and we have a little map of the scene of the crime here. I think the night before she arranged to meet someone by the fence off Washington Boulevard. We see his car is actually parked somewhere on Washington Boulevard, Joe Fletcher. So it makes sense that she said, okay, I'll meet you over by the lot. You can come through the fence or whatever, sneak on the set. They didn't like this guy, so they might have not have let him on the site. So, but the question is, did she agree to meet Joe Fletcher or did she agree to meet Thomas Deasy and Joe Fletcher showed up? I don't know. But remember, we walked through the fence to get to Washington Boulevard, so someone else could have walked into the set from Washington Boulevard. And I think that makes sense that she had arranged a meeting. Does this say the part where it says how they're dressed? Somewhere it says how they're dressed. He's got black shoes, black pants, gray coat. Can someone look up what a trilby hat is? Trilby. The trilby hat is what Deasy is wearing, ill-fitting when we find him, when we run into him. So if they've swapped hats by accident, it might be nice to know if trilby would match what the dead guy is wearing. What else do we want to talk about? Duke of Zill saying, whoever's on the other end of that call knew where to find her. She calls Thomas Deasy, but don't forget, Deasy and Fletcher are like this. They're staying at the same hotel. They're best friends. And maybe they're both involved in this blackmail. Don't forget, one of the blackmail notes says, you are forcing us to do this. I'm wondering if Deasy is lying about not blackmailing her and if he's in on this. But Deasy and Fletcher are best friends. So it wouldn't be surprising if she calls to talk to DZ, and he relays that information to Fletcher. Don't forget also, though, Chaz is also there when she makes the call. Okay, Duke of Zill says a trilby hat is very much like a fedora, so similar hats. Well, that would be a reason why you might pick it up by mistake. So I think that's where they're at. Now, when it comes to theories, when we ended last night, let's read this first. Differences between fedora and trilby. While fedoras feature wide brims that are relatively flat, trilbies boast short edges that are turned slightly upwards at the back. Interesting, but not helpful to us. Okay, when we ended yesterday's session, I felt like, wow, this game is full of theme and flavor and great writing, but the mystery seems like it's fairly straightforward. It's the ex-husband's blackmailing her, and it looks like murder-suicide. But I'm really starting to have some doubts, and there are a couple of things that are unexplained. The blackmail notes that sometimes say me and sometimes say us. I'm unsure about the role of Thomas Deasy in all this. If she went to a meeting to meet Thomas Deasy, how does she end up being killed by Fletcher? Is there some significance to these third footprints? Was Thomas Deasy there or someone else? We know that she's planning on leaving to London, and she's sort of done with all this. She's fed up with this part of her life and blackmail, and very upset about them using her club. It does say somewhere that the club was where she was going to make her money so she could leave acting after acting was over. And so the fact that Thomas Deasy's robbing her from her club might have come as a bad surprise, may have messed with her plans. So there's that. There's the issue of why this is all happening on April 3rd, the date of this event with her possibly illegitimate child. Who's the illegitimate child's father? Is that relevant? Is the two redheads working for Otto Friedrich, and the rumor that they were hired to kill her, like, is that what this is? Is the movie owner killing her because she was going to threaten to reveal and leave? So it feels like, why is there the locket in her hand? The thing with the locket also, the locket's in her hand, and the cop says that the locket was reported by her stolen in February by this kid, this 17-year-old kid. We might want to reread that, but when we thought maybe the kid was the orphan illegitimate child, but when we went and visited the kid's house, it turned out that the kid was the son of an ex-police detective, and they seemed kind of close. But he said, I miss my mom. Oh, wait, now I'm starting to wonder. He said, I miss my mom. We just wrote that off. It was sort of the last thing he said. He broke into Clara's house because he missed his mom. Is Clara the mother? Well, we need to reread that. At the time, we read it as, we didn't make much of it. We thought he was just breaking into this celebrity's house because he heard about it in a magazine. We didn't make the connection when he said, I miss my mom. We thought he just missed a woman. But now I'm starting to wonder, maybe we were right originally, that Clara is the mother. We need to reread that part with the kid interview. So, but then the question is, if the locket was stolen in February, how does it end up in her hand when she's dead? Let me show you, while the chat, if the chat has anything else, what I prepared for my notes of leads to chase down and issues to think about. Okay, leads to chase down. We haven't visited any of our informants. We haven't tried to find Hickman in the directory. He's the first officer on the scene. We haven't yet looked up the Weber brothers. These are the two red-headed brutes that beat us up and work for Otto Friedrich. We haven't tried to find Camilla Hale yet. She's described to us as being in fancy dress shops. I don't think she's relevant to our case, but we might. We haven't tried to visit Clara Rose's theater, mentioned in the newspaper. And we haven't read the dispatch that we were told about came in and sort of had breaking news on our case. So that's going to sort of start us out on Act 2. I did write down while we were reading Fletcher's lawyers. If he really does have lawyers, as he says here, my lawyer's something, then maybe we should check if he has lawyers. And then here's some issue. This is the Fletcher versus DZ hat. 3 footprints at the crime scene. This weird part about DZ owning part of the Sidewalk Cafe. Some oddities in the blackmail notes. The fact that one says me, one says us. That one started in February. That's this one, was stolen from her house in February. Not only that, we don't care if it's yellowed anymore. That I got wrong because I was thinking that this was yellowed, but it was this that was yellowed. Okay, but look at this. Can I point something out? In this blackmail note from February, it says, you know you have nothing without me. No career, no cafe. No career in cafe sounds like it's Deezy. Deezy's the one who was her manager 30 years ago, and Deezy's the one that apparently owns part of the cafe. This is written as if it's Joe Fletcher, the ex-husband, but isn't this no career, no cafe? Doesn't that suggest it's Deezy? We don't really know what the ex-husband's tie-in with the career is, but he's not even allowed into the cafe. He has no involvement with the cafe. That's clear. So I'm starting to think that Deezy is the one. Come to bed, back to bed. I'm feeling like there's a triangle here, a romantic triangle with Deezy. But let's get back to that. So that was my note here. Help with career, cafe. A note for us to check the handwriting again. Well, here's a thought I had, which I love if it's true, but it's almost like I don't dare hope it's true. So this note to Fletcher, we find in his old apartment that has been completely cleaned out except this one rotten garbage pail this is crumpled up in. And I was thinking, is someone setting up Fletcher? Is this a setup? Are someone planning evidence for us to find to suspect Fletcher? And is that why this was left in the garbage can? They thought we would find it? I love that idea. I just don't dare hope that this murder plot was so clever to do that. So let's think about that later. Jonathan says, are we sure that the husband was not involved in the cafe before the divorce? Are we sure the cafe was after the divorce? Nope, we're not sure about that. We're not sure. It's possible. We just haven't, seems like we have no evidence about it. Okay, continuing with my list here. Birth certificate, date of request sent to Clara. Okay, so I misunderstood that. There's no date of request, and it's an old birth certificate, so we can cross that off. Here's our note about how weird it was that William Hale was lying at being at the scene. We're told that Deasy knew Clara for 20 years. That's when he was a manager. We don't know what the subject of the fight with Howard Hughes and Otto Friedrich were, but I would like us to see if we can chase that down. Here's my note. Was Clara's baby with Otto Friedrich? And maybe we should point out, was it with Deasy? And I want to add this other one, like, was 17-year-old thief her son? That's this new thing we were just thinking about. Okay. Maybe there are more hidden clues in the phone call that was overheard. Remember, he overhears a bunch of stuff that he misremembers that feel like they might be little clues. We're told at some point that Clara's been trying to divorce Joe Fletcher for years, but she can never make it happen. This leads credence to the idea that he would refuse to divorce her on threat that he would reveal everything. And I'll just point out, it's Deasy that tells us. Deasy tells us Fletcher still in love with her. He's the only person that says that. Is he lying? Is he so clever that he's lying? I don't know. Chaz, the mobster, tells us that he thinks the Webbers were hired to kill Clara. We might want to reread that. The mom says Fletcher wouldn't commit suicide, but would kill her. We're told that Deasy was on edge after the Clara call. Calls someone else. Remember we were asking, how did Fletcher find out about it? We're told by the manager of the Sidewalk Cafe that Deasy was on edge after the Clara call, and he called someone else. She thinks it was Fletcher. That would explain how Fletcher would know about it, but he also could have called someone else, the movie director or Chaz, although Chaz was there at the time, so he may have known about it, the mobster. And then a little reminder that the Weber brothers, the redheads, are connected with Otto Friedrich. Okay, so those are my notes of things to check out. Duke of Zill, could it all be Deasy? Are we sure? Duke of Zill says, are Joe and Clara actually divorced or not? At least one person referred to him as ex-husband. Isn't he paying alimony? Doesn't mean they're divorced. Okay, no. They're not divorced. She is paying alimony to him as per a separation agreement. That's what we're told. That's the letter from the lawyer says. This is notice that the support provisions of the marriage separation contract dated February 13, 1946, so 2 years ago, they got separated but not formally divorced, will cease. That leads credence to the idea that she's separated from him, but he is holding something over her and says, we're not going to get divorced, and you're going to pay me money. Jonathan Warner says, Deasy's having an affair with someone and his wife kicked him out, so I don't know if he would be blackmailing her in the romance sense. Yeah, this throws a little bit of water on the Deasy case, because when we track down Deasy, let's take a look at that. We are told that Deasy's having an affair and his wife kicked him out. And then that might make you think, is Deasy having an affair with Clara or something? But Deasy's gal seems to be here at the hotel with him. She opens the door. Hey, says the gal, you can't just come in. You look at her, skinny, disheveled, and nervous, and offer up a nod. Mr. Deasy asked me in, didn't you, Tom? Deezy, still standing where he answered the door, says nothing. The gal says, "Who are you?" Now, I just want to point out here. Here's where he says, so he's sort of half convincing and half not. The half part where he's convincing is he says that, like, I know when she changed, I know the date. Let's see. We say, let's go to this. Let's take a look at it. So he comes in, he's got his raw, oversized hat. The gal looks at Deezy, who motions for her to do something. You place your hat next to you. We say we could do it. The drink. The gal looks at Deezy, who motions for her to do something. Hat on the bed, that's bad luck, she says. She gives us a bourbon and soda. She touches the knot on our head that we got from being beat up by those guys. She says, ouch, that looks like it hurt. Okay, so we talk about Clara and Fletcher. And we say, people have been looking for you. Eventually, he speaks up. We accuse him of embezzlement, theft, and fraud. Deezy gets up, pours himself a glass of scotch, and he says, is there anything you didn't do against your dear friend? And then there's the murder. And he says, that's enough. You got it all wrong. Okay, so he says it was Fletch who was extorting her, blackmailed her. He looks at the gal, shakes his head, and takes a long breath. That's what their whole sham marriage was. All those years, one more long extortion blackmail honeymoon. But she'd finally had enough of it and was losing control and getting desperate. The funny thing, no matter how wrong he might have been, he was still so in love with her. Even more so after the war, but he was pretty mixed up. We both were, I guess. He turns the glass over and stares at the bottom. But there was something about Clara, it's hard to explain. It's like she wanted to be used, loved, and stepped on at the same time. I know how that sounds, but it's not an excuse, it's true. He lifts his head and looks at you. Sure, I took advantage, everyone did. The cafe books, you've probably been talking to that Weasel Hall. It wasn't just my doing, it was everyone's doing, and Clara knew about it, at least on some level. She'd go to the wall for just about anyone except herself. It's like she wanted the punishment, and the whole town can dish that out. He breathes. This is a very nice film noir flavored little discussion we're having. And it sort of resonates with us that if she's been traumatized by having this illegitimate child, this idea that she's sort of looking for punishment for that. Okay, we ask if Clara was always that way. Nope. You look at him straight. Do you know when it changed? Sure do. Down to the day, even right down to the hour, but that's something I'll never tell. I know you think I did her wrong, and I'm sure I did, but I never broke that promise. I never used her secrets as threats. Other people did, but that's where I draw the line. And I didn't kill her. That sounds quite believable. He's like admitting to the crimes of embezzlement and stuff, but saying, you know, I know when this happened to her and I never would use this against her. So that makes us think he's telling the truth. And then we ask him about the two redheads. He says they're the Webb brothers. Okay, so we want to check them down. And then he says, then we say, you should also call your wife, she misses you. You tip your hat to the skinny girl and exit the parking lot. It's almost as if we're saying that out loud so that we get him in trouble with his girlfriend. Which is how I read it. But I'm not 100% sure what the deal is with that woman in there. She's kind of acting like she's got some more power than being his girlfriend. And he is hidden away in this hotel. I'm leaving open the possibility that she's babysitting him for the mobsters. But boy, he sounds believable when he says that, when he admits to his crimes. But then there's those little illusions about he lost his head about over the war. I guess we both did. Like, is he in love with her too? I'm not sure. Duke of Zil says, is the hotel girl the person he's cheating on his wife with? That's my assumption. That's my assumption. But I'm not 100% sure. Zil and I remember that the police father said his wife died of cancer recently, and that is when the son acted up. So, yes, I think we need to reread that. It's very interesting, but yes. I mean, I think that's, at the time, we read that as being confirmation that it was not the son, but the age is very tight, and let's reread that. 088. So just to be up front, what we'll do is we're going to spend a couple more minutes. We're reviewing our case and our evidence. Then we'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and start reading new stuff. Okay, so here we are visiting the kid. Needham is the name of the kid. The Needham family home is a little bungalow on a pleasant-seeming cul-de-sac. Mr. Needham answers the door. He's pleasant, but not so little, with a square jaw and hands that look ready for action. Hello, detective, he says. I know you have a job to do, but Andy has spoken with the police already. He was a minor when the burglaries took place. Can I just point out that if he was born in April and was 17 in February when the burglaries took place, that would make him 18 now in April. It's like he's turned 18, and here's his father saying he was a minor when the burglaries took place. And we were told 17. That would make him 18. It's very convincingly matches if his birthday was in April, right? 17 in February. He turned 18 in April. That's why the father is saying he's not a minor now, but he was a minor 2 months ago. All right. Then we recognize the detective as this guy, the father, as being a detective. Reggie Needham? Detective Reggie Needham? The guy says, nope, not detective anymore. And then we're told that some of LA's finest had to take the fall. Needham had early retirement, but not the decorated end to the career. Andy's your boy. Andy's your boy, we ask. McTeague had left this detail out of the report. Now look what he says. He doesn't say yes. He just says he's a good kid, just going through a tough time. Needham glances down at his feet. It's ever since his mom died, cancer and adolescence. He looks at you and nods. That's a 1-2 punch. He won't be breaking in anywhere else. You have my word on it. Needham has that feel, steely, true, and calm, the kind of cop you'd wanted to be. I'd still like to talk to him. He leaves you in the doorway, reappears with his son. Hi, says Andy Needham. He doesn't look like a criminal or even a delinquent, really just a kid, not a happy one. He's been crying. He's been crying. Why has he been crying? His hands shake. You can take out the note you got from Mr. T. Can you tell me where you found this? He says, in Clara Rose's house. In her bedroom, in a drawer by her bed. And did you know that Clara Rose has died? Andy looks stricken, but not in a way that suggests surprise. More like a reminder of grief. So he's already heard she's dead, and he's been crying about it. His body starts trembling, but it eases when his dad puts a hand on his shoulder. You've admitted to burglarizing her residence. Can you tell me why you did that? You can see he's choking up. I've seen her movies. I just really missed my mom. You can see he's choking up. I've seen her movies, ... He takes a heavy breath and looks right through you. I just really missed my mom. You thank them both and leave them there, father and son, looking into the middle distance. So he says his mom, he's ever since his mom died, cancer in adolescence, and yet, boy, he just makes this casual statement that he broke in because he missed his mom. If he was adopted, then he might have a biological mom and a adopted mother. His adopted mother dies of cancer, and now he's reaching out for his biological mother. I think that's the yeah, I'm very... He had been breaking into several celebrity homes. Where did we hear that? That's important if that's true. Let's read the paper article about it. Clara Rose breathes easy as the youth arrested. Actress Clara Rose was interviewed on the set of her new film, Leopard People, finally addressing rumors that police were investigating a break-in at her home. Rose said that a youth was arrested by police for breaking and entering. I'm relieved the matter is settled. Now surely there's other news to cover. The incident occurred in February while Rose was abroad. A number of items of expensive perfumes, clothing, and jewelry were stolen. According to other sources, Miss Rose also received threatening letters, which may be why she is now living in a second residence. LAPD Detective Henry McTeague issues a statement. It's my opinion that Miss Rose was targeted after her home was featured in the December issue of Photoplay magazine. She has, however, decided not to press charges. More evidence that perhaps it was her son that broke in. Anonymous tips led to the early morning arrest of 17-year-old suspect at his home. Due to the boy's age, he cannot be named and is expected to be released into parental care later today. The detective wouldn't comment about ongoing investigations, but anonymous sources suggest that the minor is also a suspect in at least 2 other break-ins in the wealthy neighborhood. Okay, good catch, Jonathan. I had completely forgotten about that. Well, that is something on the other side of the scale if he's breaking into lots of starlets' houses. Good catch, Jonathan. If he was breaking into other houses, that would point us in the other direction. So let's take a look, just to chase down this lead a little bit more. Let's take a look at what did we already read what the detective said about finding the thing? Let's read about the theft crime again from the detective who worked that case. So he's a sloppy detective. He comes back from lunch. He's got stains all over his shirt. We ask about the robbery. We picked up the kid who did it. He's back home now. As far as I know, the dame ain't pressing charges. What's the problem? The dame is dead. Is there anything about the robbery that struck you as strange? No anomalies, just the average ones. Average anomalies? You're starting to lose your patience. In these kinds of cases, the list of things stolen never exactly matches the list of things recovered. You give him back 33 things, all they do is gripe about the number 34, which in this case was, I don't know, some silver locket. She'll probably find it behind the dresser. So she's claiming she didn't get that back. Okay, what about the kid? Underage, 17 I think he was, something Needham, just wanted attention probably, or walking around money, a sniff of her knickers, maybe all the above. What did he take? Just what it said in the news, a bunch of perfume, jewelry, trinkets. Do you have the address of the kid? Sure, I don't see why. Oh, Then he realizes, I found this. The kid said he picked it up in her bedroom, but she claimed no knowledge. Good, kind of strange. That was this note. All right. So Jonathan says, my issue is it seems like there's probably a struggle between Fletcher and whoever shot him, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence of a struggle in the photo or crime scene. Well, if his best friend shot him, he might not have suspected it or believed he was going to get shot by his best friend. Duke of Zil says, regarding informants, can we talk to the newspaper editor and reveal some of these sources, authors, birth, deaths, marriages, informant? That could be an option. Yeah, we're going to talk to all of the informants. We're going to go to every place we can go to in this case. Have no fear. So yes, another way to say that is some of our questions may get answered when we track down more of these leads and talk to our informants. It's just fun to chew on this case. And I think we should remember that it felt like at the end of yesterday's session, it didn't feel like there were mysteries. Now it feels like there are mysteries. And I'm loving that moment that we're here and we're having, like, our gumshoe instincts are telling us something's rotten. Like something else is rotten under the surface. And I think that's worth sort of savoring a little bit. Anything else you want to talk about what we know already, what our suspicions of, any clues we want to reread before we take a break and then start reading new stuff? Anything else you'd like me to reread, like the comment about Otto Friedrich? I've made a note here, 103. When we meet with Ida Lupino, which was one of our fun moments, she says, Clara's like an older sister. She says Clara wants to get out. We say, apparently she was acting kind of testy, going after everyone. And Ida Lupino says, yeah, you're correct, but you've got it wrong. She wasn't on a rampage. Beginning of night, she was fine. She was excited about going to London. And then she gets into a fight. So she's in a good mood, according to Ida Lupino. Clara's in a good mood. Then she meets Mrs. Hale. Two incidents. First, there's the one with Miss Hale, and it was all Miss Hale. She just went at Clara. I think that's pretty obvious what that was about, having an affair with the husband. But why Camilla chose then and there to confront Clara, I really couldn't tell you. More suggestion that maybe we should try to track down Camilla. The thing later, though, with Blotto Friedrich and Happy Hughes, that was Clara's doing. I think she'd sunk a few drinks by then. Maybe the stuff with Camilla got her rattled. And then she went for the big boys. Is it possible that Camilla said, you're having an affair with my husband and I know your dark secret and I'm going to tell people? And that's what triggered all this? To tell the truth, we asked what it was about, what her argument with Otto Friedrich was about. She says, I don't know. Maybe she was sick of running around the jungle and climbing out of swamps. She used to get good movies. But I bet there was more to it than that. She lowers her voice. Few people know this, but Clara has a sticky past with Otto Friedrich. Something happened between them early in her career. This was before Friedrich ran Orpheum Pictures, when he was just a producer. She never really talks about it, but even from a rough sketch, it looks like Otto was pure sleaze. That's why this makes me think it's his kid. Or he made her give up the kid. Did you hear what she was saying that night? Something about threats, blackmail, keeping people's secrets. It was veiled but charged, if you know what I mean, with plenty of expletives. Otto was red as a Martian sunset. What do you think she was trying to achieve? I don't know, she says. I'm one of the lucky ones. If it weren't for Clara, I'd have fallen in a lot more swamps. But it was like she was finally done with it all, pulling herself out into a brand new life. Instead, she wound up dead. So she had some conversation with Otto where she was like, it's coming out. I'm done with this. I'm telling everyone, I'm no more blackmail. It's all going to come out. So that's why I think we have to track down Otto Friedrich angle more. John says maybe Camilla had found out about Gambling Den and was going to leak it, or found out about something. Duke of Zill says something that I think we all agree with. Jonathan, I think, will agree as well. Says, I do sometimes feel like using informants are like getting an assist, like a hint. So it's fun to solve as much as possible before checking those. I agree with you completely. And we should, this might be a little bit of a clue, right? I mean, we know the birth certificate for the son is Andrew Eli Pent. Wait, Andrew? Andrew? What's the name of the kid? What's the name of the Needham kid? Is it Andrew? Was the name of the Needham kid Andrew? Let's look up Needham again. What number was that? 88. Needham family answers the door. This is why we spend time going over stuff. You're not sure they mentioned it, huh? Let me quote. The Needham family home is a little bungalow on a pleasant-seeming cul-de-sac. Mr. Needham answers the door. He's also pleasant, but not so little, with a square jaw and hands that look ready for action. Hello, detective, he says. I know you have a job to do, but Andy has spoken with the police already. He was a minor when the burglaries took place. The victim filed no charges. I'm his father, and I'd like him to be left alone. Bingo. That's very clever writing. That's very clever writing. It's just snuck right in. Andy's already talked to the police. Just snuck right in. It's not blatant. It's not like, Andrew, come here. Just snuck in. Okay. Well, now we know. That's the kid. That's Andrew. Okay. Well, that's kind of wonderful to nail that down. All right. Now, the plot thickens a bit. It's her kid. Somehow he knows, or randomly robs her and realizes it's the mother. But he's got the locket. And maybe we still don't know how that explains the thing, but does that mean the kid showed up? The kid showed up, and you could imagine one scenario, like Fletcher confronts her, shoots her, the kid is like obsessed with her, so he's following her everywhere, and sees his mother get killed, runs up, grabs the gun, shoots Fletcher in the mouth, and he's such a kid that Fletcher doesn't even believe for a second it's going to happen. I don't know. Or the kid kills both of them. I don't know. But the kid showed up on the set, missing the mother, and like gives his dying mother the locket. Or maybe the kid is not involved in any way, but just like sees everything goes down and runs to the mother and gives her the locket. So she had her one moment of peace as she's dying. All right, I'm glad. That's nice that that clicked in. We're probably going to get told it in hints. if I had to guess, judging the difficulty of this case, it's going to be sad when the hints give us more information to confirm that Andrew is the son. But we figured it out on our own beforehand. I think the kid fighting Fletcher after Fletcher killed the mother makes sense, but I still think there should be more evidence of a struggle. What makes you think they were fighting? Jonathan, what makes you think they were actually fighting? Just the bruises on the knuckles of the dead man, Fletcher? That could be fighting with someone else at some other time. Although you're right, they're... But just to confirm, Jonathan, it's the fighting that you think is the bruise on his knuckles. Okay, that's where he's described as having some unusual bruises on his third and fourth knuckles, as if he hit someone. So maybe he hit the kid or someone at the scene, but those bruises could be old, don't forget. All right. Anything else to go over again before we start looking for start reading new clues, read the new dispatch, talk to our informants, try to chase down Camilla, Hale, etc. Anything else from our already existing clues that you want to reread? Do you want to see the section about where Chaz is thinking, says the Webbers were hired to kill Clara? That's sort of significant if it's true. Do you know who killed Clara? You mean more than Joe? Well, I'll tell you, I did hear through the grapevine something about a red-headed, two-headed monster being hired for just such a thing. Monster got a name? Got a couple of them. What about you? You got an alibi? And we do see that he has an alibi. We haven't really thought about checking alibis. Who has alibi? We don't really have an alibi for DZ, right? We've got an alibi for Chaz, the mobster. We got an alibi for the co-owner of the Sidewalk Cafe. I don't believe we ever asked DZ for an alibi, though. Was Joe Fletcher into boxing? That would explain the knuckles. I don't think we heard anything about Joe Fletcher being into boxing. Jonathan Warner says, I feel like it will turn out he was not shot in the face deliberately. He will have been shot during a struggle. That's an interesting idea. We don't know who the father of the kid was. I do. That's when I picked this up, when I saw it was Andrew. What I really was planning for us to look at is the middle name is Eli. That feels like that might be a clue. Like who, maybe a clue as to the father. Who is Eli? Like what? Joe Fletcher doesn't have an Eli. What's Thomas Deasy is not an Eli. Otto Frederick is not an Eli. Like, what was the Eli? Miss Dakota Pent was her movie theater. Like, let's keep our ears open for someone that might be tied to this Eli. Duke of Zill says, autopsy confirmed both bullets were from the same gun. It sure seemed like it. The autopsy told us that both bullets were 44 or 45 caliber. 13.8 grams, 13.9 grams, essentially identical. Look at this. We also learn their middle names here. Joseph James Fletcher, Clara Lee Rose. That could have been significant. It doesn't. There's no Eli, so there's that. But to Jonathan's point about a struggle for the gun, it does say trajectory is typical for suicide, but noted some powder residue on hands and incongruous burn marks on face. When we read that, this is still confusing. Like, what's incongruous about burn marks on your face and powder residue on your hands? Wouldn't you expect that if you shot yourself in the mouth? But maybe it's trying to tell us that, like, there's burn marks on palm of hand that you wouldn't get if you're putting the gun in your mouth. You wouldn't get burn marks on your other hand, for example. But if someone was shooting you in the face and you were like, no, like this, then you could get burn marks on your hand. That might be to Jonathan's point about it being a defensive thing. I like that idea. I think Fletcher could have shot Clara Rose out of frustration and jealousy. Maybe Andrew would have shot her. I don't see how Andrew is shooting her. And it's a really open question to me about whether Fletcher is jealous of her. Thomas Deasy says he was always still in love with her. So if he's telling the truth, then shooting her when she's dropping him and saying, I'm not going to be blackmailed by you anymore, makes sense. If we believe that. I'm just not... I still have a hard time swallowing that. They've been separated for 2 years. I mean, he refuses to get divorced, so maybe he does still love her. And when she finally says, that's it, it's over, you don't have any hold on me anymore, maybe he does lose it and shoot her. And then someone shoots him. It's certainly plausible. It's certainly plausible, but I still sort of am having a hard time swallowing it. If DC is telling the truth, though, that he still loved her, it's just the loving and blackmailing are a little weird. But maybe out of desperation to keep her close, he's blackmailing her for money and because he still loves her. That's just a little weird, but maybe that's the kind of illogic that is realistic. Like, he's doing whatever he can to stay close to her, and maybe that means blackmail her for money. Jonathan says, my main theory would be Fletcher shoots Clara, then Andrew fights Fletcher, and Fletcher gets shot during the struggle. That's where I think there should be more evidence of a struggle. That would fit with Clara's mother's assessment of Joe. Yeah. I don't know what you mean. More evidence of a struggle. How, Jonathan? How would you expect more evidence of a struggle? You're saying like he punched him in the face. We don't see any wounds on Andrew. Like when we meet Andrew, it's not like he's got bruises on his face. He's been crying. I don't know if the bruises are a red herring. You can imagine, though, he shoots her, he drops the gun, the kid runs up, grabs it, and shoots him. The gunshots seemed like they were coming in fairly close succession, though. When everyone describes it, they say, we hear a boom, boom. Like, if you were a witness, a sound witness to that, and there was like a 30-second pause, you would remark on that. You'd be like, I heard a shot, and then 30 seconds later, I heard another shot. So if it's not Fletcher that shot her, but it's still the same gun, it's a little weird that the shots somehow came in close succession. I think Fletcher should probably be farther from Clara or at a different angle. More kicked up dirt around his feet. We did see 3 footprints, don't forget. If I had to guess, I might guess something like this. That she calls DZ to arrange a meeting. DZ tells Fletcher the 3 of them meet, and DZ shoots Clara in the heart and Fletcher in the mouth, who's his best friend, drops it, picks up the wrong hat. During the struggle, they got into a struggle, the hat came out, and he runs off, and the son who's been hiding out runs in to the mother and gives her the locket. And in fact, I want to add a new note here. Check taxi dispatch. Like, if a third person was there, whether it's Andrew or DZ, might they have taken a cab there? I'm not sure. Unless the shooter had them both at gunpoint next to each other. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like DZ is in some romantic triangle with her and is in love with her and shoots them both. But I really don't know. And then that says nothing about Otto Friedrich wanting her killed, which we don't know. All right, anything else to check in our previous leads from yesterday before we take our break and start with new leads? We've been doing this for an hour and a half. The son stalking his mother witnesses the murder. That would explain his upset state. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Back to the 3 set of footprints. I feel as if there was a struggle. There would be sets of prints that really step on each other and point to a struggle. I agree with you. I think I agree with you. But imagine if it's Thomas DZ. He's best friends with Fletcher and 20-year friend with Clara. They don't expect anything. So he's just like, surprise, bang. And the guy's like, no, shoots him, burns on his hand. And the bruising was not from a fight. That's where my explanation explains that part from you, that there wasn't a scuffle. There wasn't a struggle. The bruising is just because maybe he's a boxer or got into a fight some other time. It's too bad that kid didn't come clean and tell us. Bruising takes a while to form. Yeah, I don't know. If you're shot dead, you might not bruise. So that, I don't know how accurate the game writers are, but that's a good point. If you do something that would cause a bruise in the next few hours, but then you're shot dead and you bleed out, you might not bruise. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but that might be true. That would tell us that the bruising had to be from a prior day. Very interesting. I would say my respect for the mystery of this game has really increased since yesterday. But weren't we at the scene very quickly? Yes, we certainly were. But we don't know when the autopsy took place. Don't forget, the autopsy could have taken place like the next day. John says, could turn out there was not a struggle. I think you guys bring up some good points. All right, guys. Last chance for, well, it's not the last chance. We can come back and look. But does anyone have any more pressing previous leads for us to check out and reread before we take a break and go to the new leads? If not, we will take our 8-minute break, come back, and then try to chase down some of these new leads. Duke of Zil says not for me. I think what we'll do is ready for new clues. Okay, so we're going to take a break. If someone thinks of something else they'd like to have read at any point, we'll reread it. Okay, but it seems like we're basically caught up, and we're going to start reading some new leads when we come back. So we'll take an 8-minute break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. Okay, we're back. You're watching Co-op for Two. We've spent the first hour and a half of this second video reviewing the case. Now we're ready to dig into some new leads. Just catching up with the chat. Duke of Zill says, for me, this is as good as the best Sherlock Holmes Consulting detective cases, though the ending could still be aliens did it, so I'll hold off on final judgment. John says, it will be interesting to see how detailed the solution is. I agree with you, although my general rule for these kinds of games is to put very little weight on the quality of the solution in terms of judging my satisfaction of it. A great solution can increase the pleasure of a case, but even if it's terrible, if the process was good, I don't hold it too far against it. All right, let's decide where we want to go. There are three main categories of new leads we can look at. There are the informants, which I think we're all agreed we're going to hold till last, till we have no other leads to look at. We're going to treat them as potential hints. We've got the very specific agency dispatch to read, which sounds like it said there's new breaking information on the case. That almost feels like that's going to be a hint too. And then we've got, I guess there are 4 cases. Then we've got a couple leads that we know we want to look at, like the Webbers. We haven't looked up the Webbers in the directory yet as well. But then there are a couple people that are sort of shot in the dark, like the checking lawyers, checking taxi dispatch, and looking for Camilla Hale. So I think let's go through the ones that are still open here that we know specifically, like the Webbers. So the Webbers we've just learned yesterday before we had a chance to follow up on them. We've just learned about the Webbers being the name of the 2 redheads that work for Otto Friedrich. So let's look up Webbers. Let's go there first. Oh, that's interesting. There's no entry for them. There's a Margaret Weber, a Margaret Weber, but no entry for the Webbers. Okay, well, we have a criminal informant underground. They might be able to shed light. But let's make a note here about the Weber brothers. That we don't know how to find them. Okay. Unresolved. I thought for sure we were going to find them in the directory. I mean, we could try to look up Margaret Weber. It was Weber's, right? Who we were told, who gave us the names of the Weber brothers? Was it Deasy who tells us about them? Oh, the Webb brothers. Not Weber. W-E-B-B brothers. Webb brothers. Not Weber. Webb. Well, does that help us? W-E-B-B. Ah, okay. There is a W-E-B. Okay. So, O Webb 299 I4. I don't know why I got Weber. Let me get rid of this. So Webb is 299I4. Okay. I wonder, let's use a different color for our second day to help us keep track. 299I4. There they are. They're living alone in this neighborhood. All right, 299. Here we go. And I did start marking in this book whenever we came across something. Whenever we read a paragraph, I've been marking it in this book. Okay. Glass shudders in the front door window and your brain rattles in your head until finally you stop knocking. You step off the porch of the wartime row house. Based on the slats nailed over windows, the general state of the yard, and the fact that nobody's answering, you decide the house is abandoned. As you're pulling away from the curb, you see a dry cleaner's shop on the corner, a familiar black Chrysler Imperial parked out front. You pull in behind it. The shop sign says closed, but then the door is unlocked, so you let yourself in. Aha, finally here to join us. The sound and image appear simultaneously. Otto Friedrich's high-pitched voice and his round self stuffed behind a desk. On either side stands a red-headed giant. Come in, there is much to discuss. You step cautiously into the light. There's an empty wooden chair with its back to you. The Webb brothers also step forward, identical except one appears to have split a lip. Is that from being punched by Joe Fletcher at the crime scene? I believe you all have met, says Friedrich, which makes me the odd man out. He seems delighted by this turn of phrase, beaming a smile as the twins grab you by the shoulders and force you to take a seat. Your hat falls onto the desk. You barely put up a struggle. Otto Friedrich gives you a wink, wagging his finger at the ginger behemoths. Roscoe and Ollie, he says, in case they skipped that when you met. They can often be perfunctory, but we at the studio would be nowhere without them. Sensing you're here to stay, the brothers unhand you, but you still feel them at your back. You wonder where they keep the pipes. The pipes they hit you with. It seems, says Friedrich, holding his hands on the desk, we have many questions to answer. I think we should start with why. Why, you say, and feel yourself flinch? You realize part of you is just waiting to be hit. Why you, says Friedrich, pointing a finger at your head like a gun. A movie set, a murder scene, a motel room, my office. Who knows where else? Why always you? It's very suspicious. It's my job, you say. Ah, he slams his hand on the desk. But that just can't be true. And do you know why? Right now, we stick with why. Why, you say, flinching again? Because it is my job to be on the set, to protect my people, to know where they are, where they were, where they should be, to know what has happened to my actors, to my Clara Rose, and also, of course, to be at my office. My job, not yours. Frederick's voice has risen. You can't tell if he's unhinged or just excited. Blood is thumping against your temples. So let us try again. The question is why? Why you? You try again. I'm trying to solve a murder. Oh, Frederick straightens up. Is that all? You wait and nod. One little murder. If that is the what, it is already solved. He puts his finger gun between his teeth, pulls the trigger, and laughs. Ha ha. Simple as an iced lolly, no? You hear low laughter coming from behind you, too, and shudder. You take a breath, trying to clear your head. Amid all the menace and bluster, you get a sense of something else as well. that he truly wants to tell you something. Of course you're right, you say, bowing your head just a bit. I misspoke. It's been a long day, and my head, for some reason, just ain't quite right. You wait. To your ghoulish satisfaction, the Webb brothers laugh again. Then you continue. Understanding that our jobs are different, yet similar, and there may be more than one murder to solve, and other questions to answer. Can I ask one too? Friedrich leans back in his chair. He looks at the ceiling, places his palm on the desk, and then just like that, the Webb brothers cross back over into original zoot suit position. Friedrich looks at you and nods. You clear your throat and go ahead. In the middle of the Trocadero, in the center of Hollywood, in front of all the stars, Clara Rose gave her final performance. And by all accounts, it was a doozy. Full of anger and pathos, spit and tears, and of course it was aimed at you. You and Howard Hughes, but I'm willing to bet mostly you. And I'll also wager that your Clara Rose wasn't acting at all. So I ask you why. And I guess also what? Otto Friedrich's hands on the desk slowly flex, rising like spiders on their legs. All right then, he looks at you and smiles. If you want, I will answer your question. But only with a condition. You wait, trying not to glance at the Webbs. You, says Otto Friedrich, a spider leg finger gun aimed at your heart, must promise to believe me. You look at him and nod. All right. He seems to settle in, hands becoming human again. Then I will tell you some things, but it will help to first know this. Nothing I say could possibly harm me. If you are distracted, even for a moment, by such a pursuit, you will sadly miss the points, and then I can't help you at all. He raises a finger and nods until you nod too. Good. The thing to understand is this. There is no difference at all, between the movies and the mob. They deal in precisely the same wares. Violence, sex, escape, impossible dreams, our highest hopes, and our basest selves. Both are big business, the biggest. And here, in this town, they are simply one and the same. Together we call them Hollywood. Actors are grifters, agents are soldiers, directors are capos, the studio head or the big boss. It is all the same play. Except for one thing. And do you know what that is? You don't readily know the answer or where this might be going, but you flounder around for, I guess, the Academy Awards? Yes, says Friedrich to your surprise. Not just celebrity or even fame, but actual stardom. It is the exception and the strongest draw there is, more than money, love, or power, and promised to the most random of souls. And here is the thing. If you get close enough, there's no saying what you might let go of just to try and reach it. As he says this, you feel a sort of tug, like what he means is almost in your grasp. Clara Rose, you ask, what did she let go of? Well, that is the question, says Otto Friedrich. If you'd asked her, at least that night in the Trocadero, she would have said her soul. And you see, she believed I took it. Oh, so many years ago. But, of course, I did not. That's the thing about souls. They're so very small at the start, so easy to lose. The way he says this, you can't help but see Mephistopheles sitting right across from you, and somehow you trust his every word. But you must have done something. She blamed you for something. Of course I did something, says Otto Friedrich, mob boss of the movies. I let Clara Rose become a star. And me? What are you going to do with me? I'm going to let you leave. The Webb brothers move to where you're sitting and pull you to your feet. But make no mistake, says Otto Friedrich, pointing his thumbnail at your soul as if ready to gouge it out. As with Clara, this is not a gift, not a kindness. It is something to always beware of. You pick up your hat, look him in the eye, and take your leave. All right. Well, that was a long, pretty cool scene there. The mob boss of the movies. It sounds like he's basically, this is kind of cool. It's sort of like he's so powerful, he doesn't have to worry about telling us the truth. This is like the guy who's like explaining this is how the world works. We're like peons to them. So he doesn't have to worry about telling us stuff and him getting in trouble. He's above all that. It sounds like he's basically, to me, it sounds like he's saying, look, she blames me for making her give up this kid, but that's the way the system works. You want to be a star, you give up you can't be walking around with a kid and have an affair and have an illegitimate kid. It would ruin your career. And so he's like, I don't feel guilty for that. That's just the way the game works. She did it to herself. She wanted to be a star. She sold her soul. That's not on me. I may have helped facilitated it as my role as a producer, as the owner of this movie production studio, but what, am I going to feel guilty for that? That's the way Hollywood works. You want to sell your soul? I'm going to hook you up with the doctor or the orphanage or whatever. That sounds pretty convincing that he's not involved in this murder. And he's basically telling us that like his job is to know everything, to watch everything. And I think that's what he's saying. That's why he's hired these two goons. Like, they're running around not to commit murders. They're running around to keep up to date on everything and make sure they know everything that's going around. Is that how you guys read it? The bust lip could have been us. Duke of Zill says, the bust lip, I was saying, is that bust lip, did that happen from the fight with Joe Fletcher? But I think it seems more likely that, yeah, maybe it happened when we had the fight with them. All right, anything else in that conversation that, put a better sticker on this, that we need to reread? That was a long one. That might be worth rereading at some point, but it sure sounded to me like he's like, this is the way the system works. People sell their souls to be stars. And, she regrets it now, and she blamed me for it at the club, but it wasn't something that upset me or I should care about. We do know from the club he got beat red when she was yelling at him, but maybe that's just because she was sort of embarrassing him at that moment. And he's basically, it was a cool picture he painted of Hollywood being like the mafia. Okay, so that's the Webb, and this is, we meet Friedrich. It was fun to finally meet Friedrich, who I was building up in my mind as the person who may have orchestrated all this. And now it was fun to meet that character, but it doesn't seem like it's him that did it anymore. I don't believe he did this murder. I think he sees himself as above it all. All right. Going back to our list here. We met the Webb brothers. How about, we wanted to go see Clara Rose's performance in this theater. Can we get to the Olympic Theater? Is that a place we know about? It says 8th NR Broadway. It's not in the white pages. And we remember there's no pure theater thing, but there is the Olympic Theater, 8th NR near Broadway, 8th near Broadway. Medical restaurants. Let's just see if we can see it on the map. 8th and Broadway. I don't know why we should think it's relevant, but they might know her or have some history on her. So 8th and Broadway, that sounds like it might be downtown. There's 8th Street. Maple Avenue. Don't know. Los Angeles Street, Spring Street, Main Street, Broadway. So here's 8th near Broadway. It looks like the only place that would be closest to that we've already been to. Orpheum Theater. It's not the Orpheum Theater, it's the Olympic Theater. 8th near Broadway. Orpheum Theater, Orpheum Theater. Well, we already went to the Orpheum Theater. Okay, so looks to me like that's not a place we can go. Can cross that off our list. All right, what about Hickman, the detective on the scene? I thought we would just check if we can go visit him. John says, I think the ad's just a clue about her name on the birth record. Yes, I would agree. I just thought for fun we would check it, but I agree with you. All right, let's see if Hickman has an entry. Hickman A, 035. Let's see if there's an entry for that. Okay, there is an entry for Hickman. I have to say, it's quite shocking that nearly every single lead we've looked up and been like, there might be an entry for that or not. There's been an entry for it. That's a good sign. So 035, where does he live, Hickman? So Hickman, .035 in C3. So this is the guy, first officer responding, and we're sort of we're following up with him, I guess. So let's mark that on our map. C3. That's where he lives. Right there. Let's see what he says. Through the front porch screen, you see Hickman in his undershirt striding toward you, already fuming as he reaches the door. What the hell are you doing at my house? You have no answer for him. Is there an issue with the report? Not so much. Then what in God's name do you want? Why don't you go bother McTeague instead? McTeague? Yeah, see what happens if you tramp all over his lawn. That Mick ain't friendly like me. McTeague. Oh, for Christ's sake, Hickman slams the door. Okay, he's just in his undershirt. He wants to know what we're doing on his lawn. All right, that was very appropriate. We didn't expect to find anything if we knocked on his door, but that was kind of fun. Okay, so lawyers, taxi. So we've got lawyers, taxi. I wanted to try to find Camilla Hale. I'm sure we're going to run into some places that aren't in the directory now, because now I'm sort of stretching. Duke of Zil says, not only an entry, but a detailed, well-written one we normally find, and that was a good example. All right, let's look at our directory. So Camilla Hale was described to us in the club as being very fashionable. She was dressed in a Dior jacket with gold, green emerald gloves. It seemed very fancy. So I was thinking there are all these clothing shops here. There's alterations, services, and clothing. So I was thinking these are baby clothing, so we can skip all those. Furs, lingerie, diamonds, more baby stuff. Let's do this. If we look up where did Hale live, just for the fun of it. Hale lived at C6. So here's Hale living near the thing. Oh, that's where he is on set, so that doesn't really help us much. I was just thinking maybe we could look up clothing shops there. All right, well, I don't know if it's worth tracking all these down, but let's see. Let's assume she's not in alterations, but in clothing. So there's 257, there's a fur shop. These probably are not going to have entries. Let's just quickly look. Okay, not 257. How about Paulson store 370? No. Rathburn's department store 997. Nope. Misfit clothing 297. That doesn't sound like her. All right, so it looks like we're not going to be able to find Camilla unless there's something I'm not thinking of for finding her. She's wearing gloves. There's no glove shop, huh? Sport shop, lingerie, diamonds. Dress code. Boston cleaners and dryers. Let's see. Cleaners and dryers 371. No. How about dress code authority 221? No. Cleaners 882. You might imagine if she got into a fight, she'd have to go to cleaners. No. Garment manufacturer 595. That just doesn't seem like us. 95. No. Dry cleaners 448. No. Okay. So it sounds like we're not finding Camilla unless we come across her some other way. All right. Well, that was just an idea. Was there a 297? No, not 297. All right, so I guess we can't find Camilla, at least through normal means. So we're going to put a little question mark around her. It's not even that we think she's got much to say, but it was weird how she confronted us. We might want to try to think about if there's some other way to talk to her, if our informants don't bring us there. Okay, I wanted to see if it's true that there's another lawyer that Joe Fletcher might be working with. So let's look in our directory. Legal. So we've got a bunch of legal places. We know Mills and Costa are Clara Rose's lawyers. Let's see if there are entries for any of these. 38. No. Clennendale Legal, 55. No. Gleason's attorney, 333. No. Mills and Costa we already went to, and then 97 Roush. No. Okay, so no lawyers that we can see Fletcher hiring. All right. What about taxi? Transportation, LA cab is 15. Let's see if there's an entry for 15. Okay, there's an entry for the cab company. So we're going to go there. Let's see if someone took a cab to the movie lot. Maybe the kid. L4. That's on the other side. So this is either going to be a generic entry or it's going to be an important entry for us. L4. And what was the 15? Right here. I see. This is considered one of our informants. So this is one of our informants, 15, who is the Joe Muggy taxi driver. He knows a lot. Sometimes it's even useful. Okay. Let's see what the taxi. So this is kind of going to an informant, but I think it makes sense. Joe Muzzy's red and yellow DeSoto taxi weaves through the afternoon traffic as he continues his dissertation on snake oil salesmen. His 5-day air freshener is on its 20th month, but sometimes he's got a fresh nugget or two. It's hard to tell if this is going to be one of those times. So, we use it synonymous with grifter, right? Or flim-flam man. But what if snake oil works? Which it most definitely does. The Chinese folks who built the train tracks, they're the ones who brought it here, the oil of Chinese water snakes. It killed the pain and swelling, so you can keep on trussing down that line. Yankees got a hold of it, put it in patient medicines, made you feel just fine. Weren't till a huckster named Clark Stanley, the rattlesnake king, self-styled cowboy, spun snakes in the air like lassos and sold Stanley's snake oil from town to town. FDA seized his wares, put it under the microscopes, and know what they found? They found mineral oil, beef fat, red pepper juice, turpentine, all sorts of sticky stuff, but not one lick of good old snake oil. And so snake oil salesmen become shorthand for goddamn unscrupulous, shifty bullcrap. Not because the man sold snake oil, but because the man did not. Little history of snake oil, how it got to be a bad name. And what does it have to do with Clara Rose, you ask, holding your nose against the interior scent? Now that, says Muzzy, is a very good question. Did you know they used rats as currency on Easter Island? You ask him to pull to the curb. I think I'll walk from here, you say, forking over $1. All right, so that seems like nothing. That was a nothing. 15, taxi, nothing. All right, I need to replace this with a better sticker. The greens seem to be acting up. I forget who it was that asked yesterday. Someone suggested that we make a video on tips for playing these games. Like one of the areas we should cover is our little helper gadgets, the stickers, the little post-it page flags that we use, all the little stuff to have on hand to keep better notes. Jonathan's saying it's getting windy here. Hopefully it won't drop. Well, I hope it doesn't drop, Jonathan. You let us know every once in a while that you're still here. Okay, so the taxi didn't pan out, and the lawyers didn't pan out. And it sounds like it's time to check the dispatch That's going to be about new information in the case, breaking us wide open. Ducazil says, do they mark when removed? I don't know if you're talking about do they mark if Jonathan Warner drops, or you're talking about, oh, do they mark when we remove the stickers? No, these are meant to be removable stickers. These stickers are sold as removable stickers, and they seem to come off very nice and cleanly. They're like the Post-it notes. So they don't seem to cause any problem to be removed. All right, it's time to read the dispatch, which we're told is going to be a change to the case, some new information. We got it, I forget where we read about it. We're told, I think it was when we visited her house or something. We're told there's been a break in the case. Read the agency dispatch. It's a dispatch from our agency. So here we go. This is kind of exciting. Let's make a note page for it. I feel like one of these is going to be like a big hint to help us make sure we're on the right track. Here we go. 5:56. Hopefully Jonathan's still here. As you grab some aspirin from your glove box, the little red lamp on your two-way radio is glowing red, lighting up your dash like the door of a downtown brothel. You lift the mic and depress the trigger. Dispatch, you say. 24, report responding from Gramercy Place. Do you copy? Miraculously, they do. Stand by, 24. A moment passes. You chomp on the tablets. 24, we have information on your case. Do you read? Like a book, you say, swallowing the aspirin dry. Go ahead. Our guys pulled prints off the Clara Rose piece. They also pulled the serial number on your Smith & Wesson M1917. It's a service issue, detective. Dispatch. Repeat the last. Your murder weapon is a service issue, detective, but it's not police. The numbers don't match. Meaning? Meaning it's got to be military. That's a soldier's gun, agent. You squint through the windshield at the sinking sun. Roger, dispatch, 24 out. Well, they pulled prints. Well, can we see the prints? Is it okay if we see the prints? I don't know why we're not getting told about the prints. Maybe we're going to see them when we go to the informant. All right. The only thing we're told here is that it's a military service issue gun. We know the two people in the military are Joe Fletcher and who else? DZ, that's right. That doesn't help us much, but it suggests that it's either DZ or Fletcher who shot that gun or who owned the gun, which was what our theory was anyway, so that didn't help us much. I'll just put military gun, and I'll put a big question mark about fingerprints. They lifted fingerprints, but they didn't tell us what they matched. I think, therefore, if we don't have a better place to go, maybe we go to our agency headquarters and see if the person running our agency has got prints. What do you think? So if you look in our informants, the first entry is Ella Crane, agency supervisor at M4. So let's go and see if she has fingerprints, unless someone else has other idea for where we might find the fingerprints. 10, it's right there. Okay. All right, let's see what Ella Crane. The famous Ella Crane sits like a poised viper in the inner sanctum of her GDA headquarters. The shocked faces of long dead, Possibly tortured animals stare down at you like ghosts. You assume she beheaded them herself. How's your progress, she asks, her unblinking eyes magnified through horn-rimmed glasses. You say, searching for a feasible answer. The grandfather clock ticks from the corner as she stares into your soul. You were planning on asking for leads, but that seems foolish now. There are stories about Ella Crane going back nearly a century. How she was a sniper in the Union Army, tracked down John Wilkes Booth, buried Custer with her bare hands. Suddenly she's up, facing a painting on the wall to your left. Who, pray tell, is this? She asks. You say and take a breath. That's Douglas D. Geddes, the founder of the agency. And what, pray tell, is our credo? Our eyes never sleep. You say it quickly and automatically, like she's holding a pistol to your head. And what, pray tell, does that mean? It means they're always open. Our eyes never close. She's back in her chair. The unblinking is unnerving. You're in the trance of her pupils now. Never close, never close. You, she says, snapping your attention, are making an inauspicious start. You are making an inauspicious start to your probationary period. You are making an inauspicious start to prove to your probationary period on a potentially sensitive matter. Need I continue? No, you say. It feels like you're being bludgeoned by her causes. Now, from the outset, this looks like a murder-suicide, no? No, I mean, yeah, it might be. Well, why don't you start there? Where? Anywhere but here. You nod, stand, bow, tip your hat, nod again, then weave out of the office like a punch-drunk lightweight. Okay, so she basically just dressed us down. Gave us some typical boss sort of words of meaningless statements that we're supposed to take as meaningful. She didn't help us. All right. Any other thoughts of where we might go other than informant? I think we're just at informants. Unless we can find Clara. We don't know who else to go to. All right, let's try. We looked up Pent, right? Pent wasn't an entry. Yeah, no Pent. All right, let's try another informant. Got any preferences? We can go to the coroner. Maybe we go to the coroner and learn more about the autopsy bottles. How about that? Autopsy reports. All right, coroner's 11. Coroner is 11, which is right near our agency. That makes sense that we would go back near there. I think it's near our agency. J4. Not that close. Okay, let's read what the coroner has to say. There's a loading dock at the rear of the Hall of Justice. It is through here that the daily dozen or so, be they rich or poor, loved or loathed, famous or nameless, arrive for one last taste of L.A. hospitality. Among the sorry stiffs, Deputy Coroner Nolan Graves is munching an egg salad sandwich, scrutinizing a textbook. He looks up as you approach. Here for the Orpheum case? Sure. You can have the news before the cops do. Dame was killed, one shot right here, he taps his chest. But the gent, he slides off his stool, taking another bite of the sandwich, and draws your attention towards two shrouded slabs. Without warning, he lifts a sheet covering the remains of Joe Fletcher's face, speaking around a knot of food in his cheek. Everything matches the .45 you found. Suicide, you say? Trying to avoid the sight of either man's mouth? Well, that's the funny part, says Graves. You're well aware that coroners have a unique concept of funny, and so you wait while he finishes chewing. The angle fits, but see this? He traces a circle with the pinky of his sandwich hand, hovering over the crater of flesh and teeth. If you're going to shoot yourself in the face, you stick the barrel in your mouth. This guy's got burns all over his face. You let out a low whistle. Didn't spot it at the scene, huh? He lets the sheet drop. Well, you are pretty green, his brow knits. Hickman, on the other hand, he's ripe as they come. Maybe he got distracted. Or maybe, you say, he wanted this to be easy. They all want that every time. Grave returns to his desk and the other half of his sandwich. It warms my heart to complicate their lives. Between the bodies and his desk is a large tray containing the victim's personal effects. You glance them over, pick up the locket that was clenched in Clara's fist. Why not around her neck, you wonder? She looks so young in your hands, so lovely, but already somehow torn. And the etching with today's date causes you to shiver. What do you make of this? Another complication, smiles Nolan and takes a bite of his sandwich. Okay. So, not suicide. Clearly not suicide. Shot in the face at close range by someone else. It would make sense if the son did it out of anger, but then how would the son get over there so quickly and get the gun? Okay, next informant. We've got archives and records. We've got our agency colleague. That sounds like just a general hint. We've got the newspaper city editor, the taxi driver we already went to, the gossip columnist, police informant, and underworld informant. What's your choice? Who would you like to see next? I'd like to find the Camilla Hale. So maybe the Hollywood gossip columnist, Eddie Ilan. Let's try him, 16. Duke of Zill says he likes going down the west. All right. But I think I want to track down. I've already chosen, so it's too late. So we're going to go to 16. Where is 16? The gossip columnist is at, what letter is that? 16 at squiggly 1. G? Is that a G? See if it's on this side. G1 would be here, yeah, 16. Okay, so here's the gossip columnist. We're not making the most efficient travel around LA, but maybe that's okay. So here's G1 where the gossip columnist is. Let's see what he has to say. Edie Alam, among the dozen Hollywood souls who could make or break one's career, is perhaps the only one beholden to no one, neither the studios nor the mob. Even the papers give her free rein, and she takes her power seriously, though you might not know it from the gossip columns. Her legions of readers think she's dishing and dishing, shooting from the hip, then dishing some more, and they just can't get enough. Sit down, she says, as you approach the booth of the Russo Supper Club. It's obvious she has no time for niceties, let alone appetizer. Clara was one of the good ones, she says, as you slide across the bench. She was a good person, a good actress, and if you're here for the right reasons, I want to help you out. I appreciate that. Can you tell me? Listen, says Eddie, looking you in the eye. I want to make sure I've got your attention. You nod. Instead of all the rigmarole about whatever questions you might have prepared, in the handful of hours since you showed up at Orpheum, can we just take for granted that I'm pretty sure what they'd be and skip to the part where I'm genuinely trying to help you? You nod once more. Okay, all of this is for you and no one else. Take good notes and then make sure to lose them, you understand? Yet another nod. Okay, here we go. Clara was a good person with a broken heart. She stared at me. Why aren't you writing that down? I know the difference between gossip and facts. It's what I deal in. I gave away the gossip for cheap. What I'm giving you is invaluable. If you know how to use it, right? Now, are you ready this time? You assure her you are. The people who made Clara a star are the people who destroyed her. And I'm not talking about her fans. People think fans choose their stars. It's not even close to that. But I am talking about Clara, too. She's to blame in part as well. You should go look for the other parts. But also know this. There's a big difference between destroying a person and killing them. You've got to keep that in mind. You look up from your notepad, having a hard time keeping up, but hoping for more. You know, says Edie Alam, what you and I do is pretty much the same. We both gather information, learn things, collect stories. I sell the supposedly valuable stuff that everyone thinks they want, and is, of course, utterly useless. Then I keep what they don't even know about. That way I've got every key. Here's my advice to you, agent who still has a soul. If you can learn the true worth of information and how and where to find it, the only thing left is to keep it under your hat. And then one day it becomes your dragon. Your notes have turned to scribbles. You have no idea if this has been helpful, but feel oddly thankful nonetheless. So far, our informants have not been very helpful. They've been very vague. I'm going to take a little break here for 5 minutes and blow my nose and refresh my tea, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. So I'll see you in 5 minutes, not 8, 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. You're watching Co-op for Two. We're wrapping up this case and we're just visiting informants. We just talked to the gossip columnist who was telling us basically learn to dig up information and then don't reveal it, keep it under our hat for a rainy day so we can use it later. And what was she telling us? She was telling us that Clara Rose was a good person with a broken heart. She's to blame in part as well. You should look for the other parts. There's a big difference between destroying a person and killing them. You've got to keep that in mind. Sort of suggesting to us that maybe like this whole town is guilty for destroying her. But that doesn't tell us who actually killed her. All right. Preference for what informant to go see next. Is there any other one right near us? It's interesting because you can see them by their stars. Most of the informants are downtown. So let's flip back over to downtown. The chat seems to say whatever, no preference. All right, what was 14 was the newspaper city editor. Let's go there. That's 14. So 14 is down here. Broadway and 11th Street, way on the south of town. Let's see what 14 has to say. Let's see, we went to Ella Crane already. Where else did we go? We went to 11, which was the coroner. Just trying to keep our records good. We went to 15, which was the taxi driver. He was not at all helpful. We went to, and now we're going to 14. Okay, so here is the newspaper editor. You tap the glass of a first floor window at the Los Angeles Examiner. Agnes Ross is in the midst of talking, always talking, but she acknowledges you with the jerk of her thumb towards the front door. Linotypes clatter as you squeeze past the ink-fingered copy boys into the sprawl of her office, where some poor syndication stiff is making his final pitch. How about the anagrams, dear Delilah? Twice is my limit, Teddy. Don't make me say no again. All right, but at least think about the horoscope. He slinks past you out the door, utterly defeated. Still breaking hearts, I see, we say. And yet they keep on coming back. Speaking of which, been a while since you darkened my door. Agnes is short and stocky, but the fastest gal you know. I got a new gig, you say? Don't I know it? The GDA's new wonder kid. Hardly. Is there some kind of oath you guys have to take? That's confidential, you flash her a smile. Of course it is. Secret handshake? You nod. I'll show it to you someday. In the meantime... let me guess. Clara Rose. You're a crackerjack, you say. Sure, and you're a prize. What do you got so far? Honestly, you take a seat. Not much I haven't read in the papers. And we thank you for your business. But really... Agnes pulls out a pencil and taps it on her notepad. Our reporters are going with the murder-suicide. Is there another angle? Did Joe Fletcher not kill Clara Rose? Your head begins to ache. I didn't say that. Look, I'm happy to tell you something when I know it, but I'm still just fact-checking. Fact-finding. Ah, so you're hoping I have facts. That or, I don't know, I'm just sort of stuck. So, she says, dropping her pencil, you and your ultra-mysterious agency want some advice. You should try Dear Delilah. Thanks for nothing, you start to stand. Oh, don't be such a grouch. What would I do if I were a young detective? What I would do is go back to the crime scene and take a look around. Then move farther and farther out. I mean, you have a map, don't you? And you could try concentric circles. Concentric circles, I often find, are really quite calming. Sometimes even helpful. You might discover something you weren't even looking for. There, how was that? Always worth the visit, you say, standing up and tipping your hat. Agnes Ross leans back in her chair. Now, how about that handshake? All right, so she did not really tell us anything. And she was suggesting, it sounds like these informants are almost where they expect you to go first. And we went all around it. But we could try to look a little further afield. These seem pretty far afield. But maybe we'll just... Okay, it looks like we had a connection drop, but that we might be back up. Let me know in the chat if you can see me and we're back up, and where we left off. Okay, Jonathan says, let's see if I can see. Okay, everything looks good now. Okay, we finished reading The Gossip Informant, and then I said we're going to check around the circles. All right, for some reason, I lost my internet connection, but it looks like it reconnected okay. I checked these circles around here. I checked the circles around where we had already looked around the crime scene, and there were no entries in these second concentric rings. So basically, she gave us advice that we had already followed initially. So it gave us no information. So everything's good. This is what I discussed while I was disconnected. I just looked at these places around here and there was nothing there. Okay, so YouTube managed to do okay, reconnect, and now we're back. Time for the next informant. Maybe the police informant? The police informant is at 17. Let's see. Okay, police informant 17. Well, it's good to know that if we lose connection, we can come back and seem like it's okay. Duke of Zill says, it does seem like they expected people to visit the informants right away. Yeah, like all of the advice of the informants have been stuff that it seems like it's saying before we did anything. Okay, here we go with 17, the police informant. From where you're sitting at the very back of an otherwise empty theater, it's hard to tell if Red-Headed Stepchild is supposed to be a comedy, tragedy, horror flick, or snuff film. There's a lot of high-pitched wailing. Between that and the whir of the projector, it's a challenge to hear what Detective Burlage is saying, which, of course, is by design. Your inside source on the LAPD is paranoid about being seen with you, let alone heard. And so you end up watching a lot of mediocre matinees together. Clara Rose, he whistles. High-profile case, sounds like they're grooming you. I'm sure the precinct is hoping I make a mess of it. I'm sure we are. What can you tell me? He glances at the exits. I know she's had some troubles. House was robbed, threatening letters. You think those things are connected? Well, I'll tell you who is. Clara Rose's business partners, connected all the way to Cosa Nostra. A woman on the screen is shrieking. She's wrestling with a mannequin. Okay, a quick update here, off plan. We're experiencing some technical difficulties with my network, it seems. So we may go in and out. In fact, I'm going to step away for a second because I can't load the chat in the proper window. But stay tuned. We're going to try to get this back on track as quickly as possible. Okay, I'm back a little early before the break. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to end this stream here, this part 2 stream, after about 3 hours. And that way it will end when there's the trouble. Maybe YouTube will let me trim it depending on how long it is. And I'm going to start a new stream up on the channel in a couple minutes. So if you're watching, Jonathan and Duke of Zill and Dawn, go back to the channel. I'll start a new stream and start broadcasting live, and we can continue in part 3. So goodbye, and I'll see you shortly on the new stream.